to share some important information with regard to the Actual Value Initiative program, a series of outreach efforts to take place literally all throughout the month of March, and I'll get into the details about that in a second. Let me also recognize Rob DeBow, Finance Director for the City of Philadelphia, Chief Assessment Officer Richie McKeithen, Chief of Staff to the Finance Director Anna Wallace-Adams, and one of the top administrators over in Finance, Marissa Waxman. As you all know, as we announced not too long ago, the City, we began mailing the property assessment notices on February 15th. Since that time, many residents have raised questions and concerns about their new assessments, which we certainly understand. My administration wants to ensure that each and every homeowner understands AVI and his or her new assessment notice. I want to take a moment and emphasize that property assessments are not bills. We mentioned this back at that time. Let me say it one more time. The assessment notice you received is not a bill. It is merely the new assessments under the fixed system. We want to make sure that Philadelphians learn all that they need to know and have access to important resources, again, related to AVI. That's why we're hosting several outreach sessions throughout the City of Philadelphia where individuals can meet one-on-one with knowledgeable staff to discuss changes to our property assessment system. At these drop-in sessions, residents can learn many of the following, but I'll give you some examples. How to apply for the homestead exemption. Again, one of the easiest applications ever devised for any government program. How to read and understand your assessment change notice. The form itself has actually changed, and so we want to be able to explain to folks just what's going on with that notice they received. How to complete a first-level review request form, and more detailed information about all the other tax relief programs we currently have in place, which, at least in my opinion, over many, many years, not just during our time, I don't think that the city government has ever done a particularly good job at letting folks know all the different programs that we have and how we get that information into citizens' hands. And so that's part of why we've devised this outreach program. If you have questions, of course, these sessions can really be helpful. We'll be sending out a complete list of meeting sites and dates either later today or later in the course of the week. But the first 3 meetings are scheduled as follows. Tomorrow, March 7th, at the American Heritage Federal Credit Union, 2060 Red Lion Road, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Tomorrow, also on March 7th, at the Honorable Joseph Coleman Library, 68 West Shelton Avenue, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. This Saturday, March 9th, at the St. John Newman and Maria Gretti Catholic High School, 1736 South 10th Street, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. In addition to these outreach sessions, the City will also be hosting 2 telephone town halls that will take place on March 11th and March 27th. City officials will take questions about the assessment process, the homestead exemption, the first-level review process, and other questions about real estate tax and property assessment changes. These calls will begin at 6:55 p.m. Participants can register in advance for the call by going to www.phila.gov or by calling 215-686-9200. You'll receive a phone call when the meeting starts that automatically places you in the town hall. You can also manually dial 1-877-229-8493 and enter an ID code 111479 to join the call on March 11th at 6:55 p.m. Okay. Don't forget, of course, to check the Office of Property Assessment, OPA's website for a number of community meetings and events related to AVI. For that information, you can go, of course, to www.phila.gov/OPA for more information. Also, don't forget that the deadline to apply for the homestead exemption is actually July 31st, 2013. Any homeowner, as long as they own their home and live in it as their primary residence, who has not yet applied, there is still time to do so. Homeowners can apply several different ways. Again, you can call 215-686-9200 and apply over the phone. This service is available in several languages and is the route for non-English speakers. Homeowners can also apply online at, of course, www.phila.gov/OPA or download paper applications from the same site and, of course, mail them in. Residents should also know that the first-level review process is a new step created by our Chief Assessment Officer that's been put in place by OPA. However, if people are still unsatisfied with that particular outcome, whatever it may be, they still have the option and the right to go the traditional formal appeal route with the BRT, and those appeals are due by the first Monday in October of this year. Lastly, we are trying to do more to help those who do not speak English or English is not their first language. The AVI Calculator, which is up on the website, and that's a new app that allows residents to look up their property assessment and estimate their 2014 tax based on a variety of different tax rates. As you all know, of course, we've not set a tax rate yet, but there are some examples. That AVI Calculator has now been translated into 5 additional languages: Spanish, Chinese, Korean, Russian, and Vietnamese. And in recognition of a growing Welsh community, we are also looking into the prospect of adding a Welsh component to the new AVI Calculator. You'll hear more information about that soon. This information is now accessible, whether you're on a desktop computer, a smartphone, or a tablet. Just go to avicalculator.phila.gov and select your preferred language. As I mentioned, Welsh is not yet available, but soon will be. AVI-related materials, AVI brochures, homestead applications, and others are being printed, are printed already in other languages, and they are available on OPA's website right now. We will continue to work with our residents and the many communities across Philadelphia to ensure that people have all the information they need with regard to AVI. And with that, I'd be glad to take any questions that you might have.
Richie did the same sort of outreach when you were in D.C. and what that process was like.
Good morning. Yes, we did similar outreach in Washington, D.C. Everywhere that I've been associated with, we've done outreach. This is the most comprehensive outreach, though, I've seen in my career.
Do you get a lot of shouting or people upset, or is it, I mean, what was your experience in other cities in terms of how residents?
In other cities, it's an information sharing experience. We're there to share information with the public, and the public is there to sort of share information with us. So I've never had anything that was extremely confrontational, anything negative like that. It was more of a communication experience.
PCs or laptops there that people want to talk to you about specific assessments?
Yes, we'll have technological devices there so we can look up certain things.
How do you address the concerns by the city controller and other groups that the assessments are off by as much as 30 or 40%?
I think it's pretty clear, unfortunately, that some of the information that the controllers put out is just inaccurate and wrong. I saw, I think yesterday, a letter. I know I read a news story sometime recently. Richie McKeithen, who actually is an expert in this area, I'm not sure that the controller is, will be putting together a comprehensive and detailed response to the concerns raised by the controller. But I think it is unfortunate if that is being done in an effort to just basically kind of scare the hell out of people.
It's not just the controller. I mean, Councilman Squilla's had the same concerns, Planet Philly's had concerns saying 40%.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people worried that these numbers are off.
Sure. I understand. And again, I'm not an expert, but I know enough to know that we have real experts in-house who do this work. They can explain what the methodology was. I think, again, as I'm hearing some of these reports, folks are taking samples, they're picking and choosing. They may not be looking at as long a time frame as the Office of Property Assessment has done. In this particular case, it's very complicated work, very detailed, and anytime you're in a discussion about the coefficients and dispersion, you really need to know what you're talking about.
Level reassessment requests have come in already?
I don't know.
As of last week, we had approximately 6,000.
Compared to other cities where you've done this?
Well, it's still early. I mean, we still have the rest of the month of March, and so what our final numbers will be not be determined for some time.
Are all requests pertaining to the assessments being too high, or is it kind of a mixed bag?
It's a mixed bag. We've gotten some that really haven't dived into too much concrete evidence. It was we've gotten a great deal where people have just written statements and really not filled it out properly, but just wrote something and mailed it in. But it's a mixed bag, and I expect that. That's typical, but it's still too early to tell, exactly what we'll get, by the end of this month.
Again, let me go back to the earlier question. I mean, a big, as I was, talking to council members, as I've had conversations with citizens, it was my opinion that we clearly needed to do even more beyond what we announced back in, I guess it was February 15th when the notices went out, beyond the calculator online. And so, pulled the team together and said, first level review is at the deadline is at the end of this month. We should take the entire month, do as much as possible to, A, make sure that people have the information that they need. B, that we want them to use the first level review process. It can be very, very helpful. And whether you believe it's too high or too low, and we've have had some folks call and say they thought theirs was too low, certainly honorable. Whatever we can do to make sure that the information is accurate, that citizens understand what's going on, that later on debate about what the rate is and whether or not people can actually pay or not, that's a different conversation, and that's a legitimate debate as well. But making sure that people just understand the piece of paper that was delivered to their home and what is this really about and what does it mean, with still a couple moving parts, the biggest of which is naturally the tax rate. We deserve to try to give people an extraordinary level of outreach. And as Richie said, and I didn't know he was going to say that, I didn't know what the previous experience had been in D.C., we really did try to put something together that is comprehensive, work with City Council. These sessions will be all over the city. Saturdays, I think Wednesday is kind of the primary day. So, night sessions, daytime sessions, during the week, on the weekend, telephone town halls, you can still call on the phone. We want people to be engaged. If you think something is wrong, get the first level review. And again, in my previous position as a member of City Council, I actively encourage folks, if you think your assessment is incorrect, this is not an ability to pay discussion. If you think the number on the sheet of paper is wrong, you have a right to appeal. That's what fairness is about. So we'll see. But I think it's hard to tell. Today's date is March 6th. I think it's almost impossible to tell how many people are going to line up for first level review when literally this process really kicks off in earnest tomorrow.
What's your thoughts on
I've not talked to the councilman about it. I may not fully know or understand the idea. I think, but on its face, part of that is about I'll just say this. I'm not being critical. It's just the fact. For all the stories that are out, and I understand very personally the concern, for all the stories that are out about people facing increases, I have to say to you, quite frankly, there's been a lack of coverage on all the folks who are getting a decrease. It's about 180,000 property owners, and they have been, unfortunately, fairly well ignored by many of those who write stories. And so, you know, at least have some balance in this conversation. And there are a bunch of folks for decades who have been paying more than they should. And we should be as concerned about remedying that situation as some might be about you know, the increases, if that comes to pass. At the same time, we're going to work very, very hard to put into place a couple different relief measures. Now, again, the simple math here is the more relief you have, the higher the rate. So the challenge is everyone's goal should be to have the lowest possible rate that we can with some amount of relief. Now, those goals are, at a certain point, they are a little bit in conflict with each other. But those dual goals, I believe, should drive, this process. A rate that is obviously as low as possible, that still generates the revenues that we need, and provides relief to those who need it. And there are people out there, many, many citizens, who need that relief. The phase-in delays those who rightly should be getting the lower bill right now, when they've been overpaying for decades, and would be tremendously disruptive to the process. So again, I've not seen the actual piece of legislation, but I think I understand the phasing concept enough to at least have that particular opinion.
So, just to clarify, have been paying too much.
No question.
Are you saying you will not entertain discussions with council regarding the phase-in, or are you rejecting it?
I've not said that at all. I was asked a question. I responded to the question. There are a lot of bills. There are a number of bills, rather, out there. I've not made a comment about any one of them. We haven't even gotten that far. So, you know, anticipating where you're trying to go, I'm not getting into a discussion about specific pieces of legislation, what's on the table, what's off the table. If something gets introduced, you know, it's automatically out in the public space. It'll get dealt with in the context of the entire issue that we're grappling with. We need to fix our system. We need to make sure we have a low rate. We need to make sure that there are some rational, functional relief measures. And every relief measure that gets put on does add to, in some amount, what the actual rate ends up being. That combination, that balance, that delicate point is where we'll ultimately end up, you know, sometime hopefully in May.
Your proposal next week, do you plan on using any other relief measures besides the homestead exemption?
We're still looking at the budget, and so I'm not actually in a position to respond to that question. And I'm actually not really going to entertain any questions about the budget. You'll get it next week. But obviously, this is something that is a topic of discussion and will have to be considered as a part of the construction of the budget.
Mayor, you said a few minutes ago that the controller was, quote, trying to scare the hell out of people. Do you think he's doing this for his own?
I don't think that was a direct quote. I think I said these efforts may result in possibly scaring the hell out of people. I think.
Do you think he's putting out this misinformation, for lack of a better term, for his own political means, given that he's up for re-election?
I'm not in the mind of the controller, so I'm not going to speculate on why he's doing whatever it is that he's doing. But I think he has possibly even acknowledged that at some point in time he did put out some incorrect information. I'd like to think that it was a mistake. We all make mistakes. I've certainly, you know, made my fair share. So I don't know what the intention was. I don't know what the purpose was. I just know what happened and what the end result was. And I think, unfortunately, some of you possibly may have ended up printing incorrect information as a result of that release.
Not referring specifically to the controller, but in general, are you concerned about AVI becoming politicized and some elected officials trying to bash the program for their own political gain?
I could not imagine any responsible elected official in this city engaging in that kind of activity about something so serious involving the taxes of our property owners and the financial stability of our city. I know a lot of elected officials. I don't know any that would be that irresponsible. Thanks.